Hello, everyone. We are live with episode 13 of Cosplay Photo Critique. Thanks, everyone that's joining us live. Really appreciate it. Um, hope it's an enjoyable one tonight. Tonight we have as our special guest Fawnina.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us, Nina. Let's try and give a little bit of background on yourself. We're changing up this week. We Instead of our usual photographer guest, not to say that Nina does not shoot photography, but she's known mostly for her cosplay.
I
So
do photography.
yeah, so
Yeah, so I've been cosplaying since 2007. In the past couple years I started tinkering behind the camera as well just because I had a nice camera on hand and was like might as well try and use it. So I've never been professionally trained in photography. I've never pursued a class or any sort of education in it, but I've just sort of taught myself and also learned from my photographer friends here and there. So what I'm hoping to provide tonight is a little bit of novice perspective, and also perspective of a cosplayer in the sense that I might notice some things with posing or costume placement that a photographer might not see if they're not accustomed to being on that side of the camera.
so I think Nina's selling herself a little short, but that's fine.
I agree.
She's like, I gotta set the bar low, guys.
Yep, no, I set it low, and then no one's disappointed.
That's us every week. It's fine.
um, yeah. So how about Nina? That was kind of your photography background. Let's maybe give a bit of kind of your cosplay background as well. Like, how long have you been cosplaying and that kind of stuff?
I think this is my 11th year cosplaying. That's kind of, I don't know, it's a point of pride, but also shame.
I mean,
I pursued it professionally for a little bit, but then realized that wasn't for me in terms of what I wanted for my entire life trajectory to be, especially in terms of my career. So last year, I kind of made a decision to take a step back from it and kind of reevaluate how I was approaching the hobby and made some changes to have a better life balance with it and still pursue other creative things that I want to do in my life. And one of those things is photography. So I've gotten more into landscape photography recently and also what I like to call behind the scenes photography. So you guys have been my subjects in that case. When we're at cons and I'm just tired of shooting, I don't want to be in front of the camera anymore. I grab my camera and take pictures of the people taking pictures so they can have some pictures of
hey, that's
themselves.
that's always appreciated because Lord
Very
Yeah,
knows
lovely.
often we
because
don't
you guys
get
do so much for us, and I'm
any
like,
photos of
you were there
ourselves.
too.
Yeah, that's a big mood. But I was gonna say something, but then it disappeared. Oh well. Let's see here. So just kind of digging into your cosplay background. Obviously,
Mhm.
you did do it professionally, but I'm like, what kind of cosplays are you interested in like making? Like, what do you kind of look for when you're choosing to do your cosplays?
Well, beforehand, I was very impulsive with my costume choice. It would be very much like, I love this character. I need to make it immediately. Not going to think it through. Just going to dive in and do it. And so I was just kind of rapidly making costumes, and that actually led to me burning out very quickly.
Mhm.
However, when I've reintroduced it into my life and figured out a better approach, it's been more so focusing on one or two projects at a time and making sure that each of them is teaching me something new, like a new technique, or I'm practicing something I want to be better at. So it's a productive use of my time. And furthermore, like now that I have an entirely separate career and very limited free time and funds, I have to fund my own costumes now. So I need to choose projects that I'm going to actually enjoy making. And I actually ran into that with Ash recently. I finished Ash from Final Fantasy 12, and towards the end of it, absolutely hated the process. I was not enjoying
Oh
making
no.
armor. I was not enjoying the design whatsoever. I finished it because I'd already put so much money into it, but now
Mhm.
it taught me a lot about like what to look for in a costume to ensure that I will have an enjoyable creative process during my free time.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does
Cassie in chat saw me putting on Ash and walking around in it and these struggles that ensued with Final Fantasy armor.
That's real.
um is the character important for you when you're cosplaying, or is that like just one of many factors?
That's the main factor. Like if I don't have an emotional investment in the character or the series or the process that I'm about to undertake, then I'm not going to do it because I just lose interest. So I usually start with, do I like this character? Do I want to cosplay them? Yes. Look at this design. Is it going to translate well to real life? Am I going to run into issues where like that's not how fabric works? If that all checks out, then I sit down and say, okay, what techniques are involved? Am I going to enjoy those techniques? So from now on, if it's like a really complicated armor build, I'm probably not going to do it because I realized I don't enjoy the armor making process as much as I thought I did. Especially when I was undergoing that pressure of like, oh, well, you're a cosplayer. You're not legitimate until you make armor. And now I'm like, I don't like making armor, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, go for that. Cool. Get a little bit of other stream related details out of the way. So we had several submissions that happened I guess after I had set the deadline. So I know a couple people were submitting and their photos will not be in the stream tonight. I've taken to capping the critiques now at 15 photos per critique. I'm not saying that will be the always number, but that's kind of the sweet spot that we found lately. We might tweak that as things go on. There's some things that I've thought, but for the next critique, I'd say if you're interested in getting a photo in, get it in earlier rather than later, especially if like the deadline I set is usually on noon the day before. So if you miss that window, it's gonna, unless there's still spots open, they're probably going to miss as Giggles McGee's are going over here.
Sorry, it's Mallow's fault.
It's always Mallow's fault. So yeah, make sure if you want to get your photos in, get them in before that deadline, because like setting this stuff up is kind of a pain in the ass. So yeah. That said, if you did submit, they are rolled over into the next critique, and I will give the announcement about the details for the next critique at the end of this episode. Other little details. I want to give a big thank you to everyone who's donated over the course of the stream. I was able to pick up this. I had a stream, an incentive goal to get a stream deck to make this process easier. And the funny thing is, we didn't actually hit the goal, but Amazon had it during Prime Day for $50 off. So it turns out we did hit the goal. So hell yeah. So I still want to say big thank you to everyone who donated. I don't have a new tip goal at the moment, but if you feel like tipping, go for it. If you feel like you learned something and you want to tip, by all means, but don't feel obligated at all. It's totally fine if you do not want to tip. That said, I do not have any particular goal in mind for the next tip. I'm trying to figure out something that can benefit this stream or something stream related to put it towards, and I don't have that, but that's what I would eventually put it towards once I come up with something. That and if you are a subscriber, I've got a fun new emote. I finally came up with an emote for you all, for the few of you that are subscribing. It's that sweet Dutch angle icon. So yeah, if you've been to this stream before, I'm pretty sure you know what that's about. We got a thing with Dutch angles, so yeah, that's
that became a reoccurring joke during our location shoot trip this past weekend, because we'd like accidentally tilt the camera and then just yell Dutch angle.
Yeah.
I mean.
It's a bit ridiculous. Yeah.
It does work sometimes though, just not most of the time.
Yeah. We don't hate Dutch angles. They just often don't work. Yeah.
Gotta use it carefully.
Like I said, don't feel attacked if we're talking poorly about Dutch angles. It's just
no, that's a good idea.
That they're bad.
Yeah, Eddie.
Dutch
kidding.
angle.
Just kidding.
Dutch angle.
A Dutch angle only critique session. Oh Lord.
I think Andrew would like pass the fuck out and foam at the mouth.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, I'd be dead. Oh no, my mouse ran out of battery. Trying to think if I had anything else that I wanted to share with you guys. I'll try to call out followers as they go, but I'm trying to still use StreamYard, and it's being a little finicky. I might switch to something else for overlays if it continues to not work. But we'll see. Another thing I wanted to introduce is that we now have a form to submit if you'd like to see a certain guest on. We still have several guests that we're looking to bring on, so it's not like we've totally run out of people that we'd want to bring on for guests. But if you'd like to see a specific person on, we'd love to know who that is and why. So I have a form that you can fill out if you are interested in letting us know. Be really appreciated if you had someone that you wanted to have on, if you'd let us know. And I think that's all of the bullshit out of the way before we jump into the critique.
All the stuff.
Yeah. And as always, chat, you're very much if you want to critique along with us, by all means. We're trying to watch the chat and see, what you guys are saying as well and incorporating it into our critiques. So keep it coming. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the first photo. This one is from Amanda Swanson. Sarah, why don't you lead us off here?
Cool. So Amanda is another submitter who's submitted quite a few to these critiques. I'm always excited to see what new stuff she's gonna post, especially because it's like pretty different every time. So first off, I was really emotional when I saw this image because I love Kingdom Hearts and Roxas is my boy. I really like the soft feels. Like I feel like you don't see this too much with photos, especially of this character. Like he seems like very peaceful and the background is like very calm and smoothing. Like I overall really like the mood that this photo is like giving off. And the warm colors really help with that, which is nice. One thing I'm going to talk about, I'm kind of like conflicted. I can't tell if the background is it composited or is it colored? And that's why some of the edges I think don't quite like match up for me.
I think it might be just like a saturation boost. Can't really tell. It's getting some heavy banding, whatever it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was like one thing. Like, I mean, that's like really hard to do when you're trying to like selectively change a certain part of a photo, especially if it's like from the model. But just to be careful of those kinds of things, because you want to make sure like, because even if you're just manipulating the color of the background, you're still in a way like you have to think in the composite kind of mindset that you want to make sure that your subject and your background seem like seamlessly incorporated. So yeah.
Megan in the chat says it looks like a photo with an effect like a painterly filter, and I guess I could see it that way, but I kind of it just looks like gradient banding to me, like it, and that might just be like the kind of photographer person that spent a lot of time in Photoshop talking, but I really do think it's a case of like saturation being boosted and that kind of banding ending up happening in the sky and a little bit in the ground, or water, I should say, not ground.
Which, by the way, the location for this is like perfect. The fact that they were at a beach is like so nice.
Is just spot on for that Destiny Islands feeling, especially with the colors.
Right? Oh.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that jumps out to me with this photo in terms of like something that I think could easily improve the shot is the framing. I think the cosplayer is just a bit low in the frame. There's just a bit too much headspace above them. I think you crop this down, it's fixed. I think you just really literally just take the crop tool, crop off like about half the sky that's exposed, maybe even a bit more. Get the they're already on a third, but their head can be the intersection of both thirds, really nailing down that rule of thirds. Their hand is almost on the other intersection of rule of thirds. Like, I think you just really have a really nicely composed photo then. But I don't think it works nearly as well with all that headroom above it.
Yeah, I like what Malo is also pointing out right now is that the sky and the sea kind of blend together. Like she didn't see that it was a beach right off the bat. And I can definitely see that. So maybe if there was in the coloring or some sort of definition was added to separate the water from the sky and the clouds, that would also help.
Yeah, I
Because
think
right now there's just like a bunch of empty space, as you were saying, but it's also it all kind of blurs together. So you almost lose some of that rule of thirds because one of the thirds is blending into the other.
yeah.
If that makes
Hmm. I also think maybe like this the scene has such strong pink colors, pinks, purples, reds, but I feel like the cosplayer doesn't have like it feels like the colors aren't affecting them very much.
Yeah.
And I would like to see probably the colors applied a bit to them. Like it doesn't need to be really strong, but just to make them feel like they're more part of that scene as a whole.
Right. There's more of a green tone to their skin instead of warmth.
Yeah,
So-
like a magenta tint would have been nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's very slight though.
That being said, I love the little fairy lights. I think it's a really interesting effect that's added to the photo, and it definitely creates some of that Kingdom Hearts feeling.
Right?
And again, like you mentioned, I love that it's a calm and peaceful photo of Roxas because this boy deserves to have some calm and peace in his life. As far as pose goes, I almost want to see like a little bit more motion or alertness. Like I know it's a serene photo, but I could see maybe like having his eyes open looking up instead of closed.
Mm.
But like I like it. That's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see the eyes open. Like him looking at the glowy stuff.
Yeah.
Even the light that you pulled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind
But
of wish
overall,
we
I
had
really,
the
really like it. It's
other
very
hand in the photo somewhere. Or, like feel like just it like totally falling at the side feels like a bit too
right.
dead.
Yeah, some separation between the body and the upper arm, I
Yeah.
think would help.
If it was just stretched out a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or like having it like coming back behind him.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't dislike the glowy orbs, but I think the glow parts on them could be toned down a little bit. Like the center of them, I think is fine being that bright. I just think like the glow beyond them, is just a bit strong and makes them feel a bit more like brushed in Photoshop than I think they otherwise would.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I really, really like the feeling that the photo gives off. And as a cosplayer, that's usually what I look to more than anything else is like, how does this photo make me feel? And what the photographer and model have done with it definitely achieves the feeling that they were going for.
Yeah, it like immediately hit like an emotional nerve within me when I saw it. I was like, oh god. So
I don't have any emotional connection to Kingdom Hearts, but I still think that the mood is nailed in this photo. So
well, that's good. That's a good thing. That means it's working.
Oh Lord.
Matt was offended.
Any other thoughts on this shot before we move on to the next one?
I am. This is great. This is a great start.
Awesome. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next shot. This one is from Barrick. If I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not, but you know, go with it. Nina, why don't you take this one off for us?
Yes, I'm so glad you gave me this one because Your Lie in April holds a very special place in my heart as a musician.
Same.
So I love the soft light and colors in this photo and the scattering of the sheet music around her to create a frame and add some more definition to the photo instead of just like flat against the ground with nothing else visually exciting going on. I really love it. The one thing I would want to point out in terms of posing is that dead on face angles are very, very hard for most people to look good at, especially when they're laying down. And she looks beautiful and lovely, absolutely, but you lose a lot of definition in the face when it's a flat, straightforward angle. So I would have had her face tilted, maybe just a little bit of an angle upwards or tilted to the side just to bring some definition back. But otherwise, that was the only thing I could think of pointing out.
Yeah, I agree. I think the head on, like the straight on look, also makes her feel like really stiff. Like I know, like things I've struggled with when people want to do this kind of pose is that when they do it straight on, they're like, "Sir, you look so uncomfortable," and I'm like, "I am uncomfortable. This is really uncomfortable." There's a pose thing I want to bring up. Her hand around the violin neck. I wish it had been a little more relaxed. Right now, it looks like she's like, and this is just also I played violin, so I'm always like nitpicky when people do Your Lie in April photos. But I would just wish her hand was just a little more relaxed because it kind of looks like she's like choking it, which isn't super great. So just have the hands relax a bit.
You like spread her hands out more like that, like feathered them.
Yeah, just to be delicate.
Yeah.
On that kind of similar note, I'm not a big fan of how the violin and then the bow followed like the same angle.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know what angle I want them at, but not the same angle.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It just create like a very distinct like line across it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do like what chat is mentioning right now. Cassie and Meg have pointed out the scattering of the pages looks a little formulaic. It's very much like 90-degree angles in terms of the composition of the photo.
It
so maybe
feels
if they
like
were
they didn't have enough.
a little bit rotated, that would help it look more like they were scattered as opposed to
It feels like they
down.
didn't have enough pages. Like that's what I get the impression of with this shot. Like they did not have enough pages to like do any layering, so that it feels like they were just like, how can we fill the most space with the 5 sheets of paper we have? Like that's.
I feel like they still could have layered them I still see it working with the
I agree.
5 pages.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But like to me, there's a space in the bottom left that needs to have a page, but it doesn't. And like none of them are really overlapping. It's funny because I actually like now that I'm looking at the top right one, I think it is like 2 pages like closely overlapped.
It is.
So it's just like, man, take advantage of it. Go crazy.
Yeah, and what could have helped with balancing out that empty space in the bottom left is if, like Malo said, maybe bring out the zoom a little bit so we get more of the grass and it looks less unbalanced, or even bring the pages closer to her so there isn't that gap of grass between her head and the sheet music.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be more of like a halo frame behind her head.
That would be nice.
I love the concept of the photo. And again, the coloring is it's very peaceful and delicate. And it really brings to mind the pastels that are present in the show, especially during the opening themes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, right?
Kind of on that line of pastels, I think you might have a better feel with this image if you change the color of the greens of the grass a little bit. Those greens and yellows, they're a bit dull and they don't feel like healthy grass, and that's not really what I care about. What I'm more saying is like you could almost try taking them to like blues or pinks and really play into that.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on the green too,
because I just don't think that green's doing you any favors as it is right now.
I mean, to be fair, it is unhealthy grass.
Yeah.
like
Water the
but
lawn.
like, yeah, but like saving the color in post is what can save like a bad location situation. So again, like making the greens maybe a little more bluer. I feel like that's another thing we talk about a lot is mallow greens, but it's fine.
Well, apparently is mallows is not healthy grass, quote unquote, whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
So the other thing on this shot is the harder lighting, and the straight on angle gives that like super strong angle coming off their chin with the shadow. And it's like I'm not feeling that too much. This shot for me would be the perfect case of like if you had someone else with you to get them with a diffuser and just diffuse that light. So like go onto Amazon, get a 5-in-1 reflector, and buy the biggest one that they make, buy like the cheapest brand, because it doesn't matter. I think I've got like a Cowboy Studio one. It's like super cheap. Take everything off of it so you get the diffusion panel, and that diffusion panel saves lives. I think the lighting in this shot and the angle of this shot is just asking for it to be using that diffusion panel. I think the lighting would feel so lovely with that. So that's just a suggestion.
I have to say though, for an image shot in such harsh sunlight, I think it looks pretty nice. Like I'm terrible. Like I don't shoot in direct sunlight because I'm like, well, my phone's gonna look like shit. So I think all things considered, like they did a really good job, like either toning it down in post. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
like that high contrast value is not there, which is nice. But I agree, a diffuser would have made it even more awesome.
It's interesting though, because it you get the shadows of direct light, but it doesn't feel quite like they're being blasted with the sun.
Right. I know my brain's a little confused.
One thing I did just notice from a cosplay perspective, you can see some of her natural hair or her wig cap peeking out just above her ear on the right-hand side of the photo. So ideally that would have been noticed during the shoot, and you could have brought that lock, like moved it physically up to cover like the sideburn area, but in post you could also just clone tool that out.
Let's see. I got if we're gonna get into mosey on down to Nitpick Town.
The Nitpick Town.
Oh no.
I
only mentioned it because it's something.
No, Nina. This is what this is.
You know we're nitpicky.
This is what this is. There is a leaf on on her wig hair on the her left camera right.
Is that a leaf or is it a flower?
I'm pretty sure it's a leaf. I mean, it looks pretty gray to me. Looks like a dead leaf.
Oh, not the pink. Not the pink.
No, not the pink in their hair. It's,
okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure
it's by their shoulder, their left shoulder.
Right. On the right hand side. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a leaf. Be the leaf.
Yeah.
Well, I'm about to get nitpickier.
Oh man.
But this is just a subject of doing these kinds of shots. Is the wig itself tends to get pushed up a little bit. You see how it's like bunching up on the top right? So just like when she's laying down, like usually what I'll do is like I'll hold the back of their head so the wig doesn't have a chance to get like bumped up by like whatever they're resting their head on, because like literally no matter what you do, this always happens. So it's just something to keep on the lookout for when you're doing like laying down shots, because
I could also see like taking more of the wig curls, like the actual body of the wig, and spreading it out around her a little bit more, so it isn't just hidden behind her shoulders.
Yeah, that would have been really pretty, actually.
I would also give a reminder to everyone that with wigs, liquefy is your friend.
I was gonna ask, like, do you think it'd be I feel like this is a lot of liquefy, and I feel like the
it
grass
is.
might look kind of weird.
Yeah, I think you could do a little bit of work on this and improve it. The
Even
problem,
just rounding it out a little bit
yeah,
more.
the
Yeah.
problem is you've got those hard lines from the music sheets that are gonna make.
Right.
So if I really, really wanted to fix it, what I would probably do is liquefy it a lot, and then I would clone parts of the grass that aren't all screwed up to like even it back out, if that makes any sense. But
Yeah,
that's
so Cassie's saying the same thing. Yeah.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that just to look out for during the shoot because it'll save you like so much time. So
and it's something that you just start learning before you do sorts of shoots. So
I feel like we went ham on this photo. So any final thoughts? Otherwise we'll move on to the next one.
I really do love it.
No, it is. Yeah,
we do.
Like I said, we're nitpicky because we love you guys.
We nitpick because we care.
And it's the only way you'll get better at art is if you get critiqued. So it's
the
fine.
only way, Sarah. Literally the only way.
Only way.
The only way you can get better at any art is submitting to this critique. That's the only way you get better at any art is getting critiqued by us. Because that's the way it works. Okay. With that said, let's go into the next photo. This one is from Cass, and I think Nina would know where this one was taken.
Oh yes, this was taken in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado.
Whoops! Oh man, I almost hit the wrong button. We want to full screen that image. Yeah. So I really like the feel of this shot right off the bat. The colors are really nice. The overall mood is really strong, and I think it's a powerful image. That and like Melinda's sword is like,
I'm in love.
Yeah, it's so good.
Like enamored.
Like it just looks
like
so
capturing all that
good.
little etching detail around the diamond in the hill.
Yeah, like it's like an awesome prop showcase, and this prop deserves to be showcased. That said, my biggest problem with this shot, I think, is the lighting. And I think you could have worked this shot better with the lighting given, or I think you could have kind of moved into a situation that would have maybe given you better lighting. Because like in this shot, like the background, you know, it's so blurred out that it's not really, I don't want to say it's not important because it's definitely adding to the mood of the image, but like you can move the cosplayer around and like get them into shade to kind of give you a nicer lighting on them. That said, if this is the lighting you were working with, I would want the cosplayer's eyes to either have them looking downwards or maybe even closed. I think it kind of, you know, like that would give the idea that they're like almost trying to build up like that inner strength versus, you know, them being trying to have that like outward, like this face, her face has a lot of determination on it, but I think with like eyes closed, it would feel like trying to draw it like a kind of inner strength. The biggest reason why I say the lighting is because in this shot is her eyes look very, I don't want to say dead, but they're just pretty much in shadows. There's no catch light on them, so they feel very dark. And if you kind of had them looking down, you'd or change the lighting, you could fix that.
Yeah, as far as the lighting goes, as Cassie mentioned in chat, this was shot in Wild Basin at like high noon. So there wasn't much that could be done. Wow. Yeah. Other than that, the only thing I want to point out personally is the sword isn't straight. And
I was gonna bring that up too.
yeah. And I almost want it moved like across her nose just a little bit more, because right now there's a gap between her nose and the sword, and you get like one little sliver of like that inner eye space. And so I'm like, just take the sword and put it over there. But otherwise,
tiny bit.
Yeah, I love the colors in this shot, and that faded, muted, like, what's the word? The
Mallow
matte
greens?
effect to it.
Mallow
Yeah.
greens? Was that what you were looking for?
Stop.
No. I was doing mallow greens. But no, the matte quality.
Oh
I
yeah.
really like that. Mhm. It feels very vintage.
That's my favorite part of this image is the colors. I think the colors
The
look
tones.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was gonna say I really. Oh.
Go ahead, Sarah. I've been talking.
I was gonna say like I really like the tone of this photo. I think like Breath of the Wild has a very vibrant color palette, and also the overall tone of the game is like, I mean, the running joke on the internet is that Link is a troll in that game, and I feel like you see a lot of photos of cosplayers as him. They're just kind of like, they're very happy feeling. They're very like bright and colorful, but this one's like more like desaturated. The expression on Melinda's face is like very serious, and you don't see that a lot. And I think sometimes you also forget that, you know, it's still Link, even though it's Breath of the Wild. So I appreciate this like more serious approach that was taken for this photo.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, shit, I'm about to go beat Ganon. Hell yeah.
I think the other thing I would say is the pose just feels a little bit off to me. I am having a hard time figuring out why. I think it's maybe even that the sword is a bit too out.
Yeah, I think the sword could have been held a little closer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little far away, I think.
Yeah, I think
Or even,
that's
like,
entirely
it down just a little bit.
Yeah, and then maybe so right
from
now.
a cosplayer standpoint, sorry, go ahead.
No. By all means, I can say it after.
Okay.
Go.
I'm just noticing all like the little wig flyaways around her head, like especially on the far right. There's like the little loopy wig hair, so I would have just clone tooled those out so they're not distracting.
The little loopy.
Yeah, there's like a little loopy.
I see it.
So I think framing wise, if you zoomed this out just the teeniest bit, and then shifted it over so that the shoulders were maybe even in the frame, I think that might balance it out a little bit. The other thing, what if we're going down to nitpick town again? On the left side of the image, with how the sword is framing things or like cutting the frame, the little bit of like the hair spike that's peeking from behind the sword there feels super odd to me. And like I'm sure it looks amazing with the wig, but like as it is right now, it just looks a little silly, just like popping out there. But yeah, I would maybe even just clone it out because I don't think it's helping the shot at all. It's just feeling a little funky.
I almost like want to take a step back from the photo so we see more of Melinda, and then maybe have Melinda centered and the sword on the far left-hand side. So it would be like a staggered rule of thirds, like sword over here, Melinda in the center, then the background.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'm just reading about Nitpick Town's my favorite place to visit.
Yes, I
know.
Oh god.
Yeah, and I will say too, the wig flyaways, because Photography Bonsai pointed out how they're like such a waste of time to deal with in post. It was very, very windy in the mountains this weekend, so we definitely will be dealing with a lot of wig cleanup in post, and sometimes that's unavoidable.
100%. And sometimes you just gotta do it. Like, it does take a lot of time, but if the only thing that's messy in your photo is just some flyaways that you could have just clone tooled out, is, you know, just do it.
Hey, but I'm gonna be, you know, the other voice here. Sometimes you just gotta love yourself and don't worry about those flyaways, you know?
Right.
Unless you look like a ratchet hot mess.
Well, and it's like I don't mind the flyaways by the sword on the left-hand side or even the ones below her ear. It's just
It's
the
the
little perfect
loopies.
loop that my eye keeps going to. So if you don't want to deal with like all of the flyaways, just look for the ones that really look awkward, like
Yeah.
loops that you could
Yeah.
stick your finger through.
Anything that looks different than hair would do realistically, I would
Yes.
definitely try and do. And just for the record, I'm pretty sure everyone hates retouching flyaways. So this isn't like I've gotten questions like people are like, "Oh, how do you retouch flyaways?" Like, "Oh, they're so annoying." And
Right on
I'm
the
like,
inside.
"Man, it's just time. They're a pain in the ass." Like
Yeah.
they're one of
Mhm.
the most annoying things to touch up in photos. So I would say if you're frustrated and annoyed by how hard it is to retouch them, don't be scared by that. Just understand that you're suffering together with all of us.
Mutual suffering. That's cosplay
Yeah.
photography.
Um. Okay. I think we covered this one pretty well. Ready to move on to the next shot?
Okay.
Okay. This next one, coincidentally, is also another Breath of the Wild link.
We
I
are
did
going
not
from
I did
link
not
to
Oh
link.
plan
my
that. It
god.
just happened that way. Um but this one is from a constant submitter of Christine W. or Fluffy Fox Photography.
Yay.
Sarah, why don't you take this one away?
Cool. So actually, in contrary to the previous photo, I like how photos, like how I was mentioning, like super saturated and really colorful. Like I
Mhm.
feel like this, like really gives off like the mood from Breath of the Wild like really well, but like brought to life. So I think that's super fun. Also the location is like really bomb. To be in this like really big open field is just like super appropriate for the character, and I think it's awesome that they had an opportunity to shoot at a
Mhm.
place like that. Um, that being said, though, I mean, this is kind of just a personal preference. So I don't know. But I feel like because the game itself is so vast, it would have been interesting to see Link standing up and then getting more of the environment because I think one of the like visually interesting things about Breath of the Wild is the open world environment and how like tiny you feel playing as him. So I think I would have liked to see more environment around him instead of being like centered. But that's just me.
I really love the open sky in this. Like it just, as you were saying, it is still very reminiscent of how open Breath of the Wild is. And so I do get some of that feeling, especially because you can see like the little scatterings of trees in the background. But I just love that contrast, how there's the blue at the sky and then it kind of echoes the blue of his costume that's
That's a good
raised against the
sky.
green.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the coloring going on here. It's the complete opposite of what we saw in the last photo, but I'm digging it.
Another thing
Um,
I really like in this shot is normally I'm a sucker for shallow depth of field, but this shot, because of like how simple the
mhm.
rest of the surroundings are, having all of the detail, I wouldn't say it helps the image, but it certainly doesn't hurt the image. Um, like being able to see all the detail in the grass and the skies, it works well.
Mhm.
Ooh,
As
someone
As
brought
far
up
as
a good
pose
point.
goes,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, as far as pose goes, I would have liked to see something different with the legs, just because the first thing I noticed as a cosplayer, I'm like, that is a crotch shot right there.
Stop.
And like obviously he's in pants, so it isn't an issue, but like that's just immediately what I thought. So I would see maybe like moving the legs a little bit, like having a knee up in
Mhm.
front instead of just sitting cross-legged.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry if that was awkward. That's just something that I
No,
noticed.
it's real life. It's fine.
um, also, I I I would I'm not sure if I would like it more, but I would like to see this as a horizontal shot as well,
Mm,
in addition to this vertical shot. I think it could work
Yeah.
well for kind of having a lot of like have like an epic scale feeling to it. I also
Yeah.
would like have stepped like 1 or 2 feet back for the shot, or zoomed out just a little bit more. Not a lot,
I agree.
just a little bit to get Link just a little smaller in the frame.
Mhm.
Because I think that a part of the reason why the shot's working is because it kind of is very empty and kind of gives like that epic emptiness that works so well in Breath of the Wild. And I think if you zoomed out a little bit, it would just further emphasize that feeling.
Yep.
Mhm. I really love the cosplayer's expression. Like, we don't often get to see the sassy, smug side of Link, so I really
Yeah,
enjoy that there's
chat
like
wasn't
that little
enjoying
bit of a
smug
smirk.
Link.
Yeah,
I mean, that's Breath of the Wild Link in a nutshell.
exactly.
It's perfect.
Yeah, I really like their pose as well. The only thing that is maybe bothering me a little bit is how the lights coming through onto their cheek. And it's actually confusing me just a little bit because the um light catch light in their eye is from the upper left, but then the like light spilling onto their face looks like it's coming from like the side right, and I'm a little
Yeah.
confused
Oh,
by that.
Huh.
So I don't know what caused that. I'm a little confused. Um, that said, this is another case where I think diffuser. If you have a second person with you, just throw that diffuser. So it's just throwing that diffused light onto the subject would work really well. Either that, or position them in terms of if you're working in direct sunlight, get it so they're turned a little bit so it's more hitting the a little bit more of the back of their head and less the side, so you don't have it spilling through their hair there.
no. Go away. Go away.
Oh,
Sorry.
Jack!
Sorry.
and then the
We never
critique
have a
was
guest
derailed.
But yeah, like they pointed out, there's a reflector on the left, so that's what's causing the different catch light from the light source.
The catch light looks really good, so like I mean,
Right, yeah, no, I really like it.
Look at that butt.
I wouldn't say that about the cosplayers like that, Sarah.
There he goes. There he goes. Stay away.
Well, there's our critique streams have peaked. Time to call it quits.
Doggo!
No, that's it. That was the big surprise.
Next guess is just
I'm so distracted.
next critique. Our guest will
know,
just be a
funny.
dog.
It's funny that he came in while we were doing a Breath of the Wild photo because there are
Right? Because
Australian
there's
Shepherds in
doggos.
the stables area of that game. So.
I mean, that's where I waste most of my time in that game. It's fun.
Mel gave a cool comment that I like. I'm not sure it would work for this photo, but I would love to see shots from the set in that. As her comment is, when you get close to the ground like this in tall grass, it's a great opportunity to shoot within the grass and give that effect that the viewer feels immersed in the environment and the the character is displayed in. And I would agree with that. So what it comes down to, though, when I'm looking at this photo, is the colors just pop, man. Like it's a kind of shot that, especially at thumbnail view, is gonna like stop you, and you're gonna look at it and go like, "Oh man."
Yeah. I think it's hard to get a saturation of this level too and have it work.
Yes.
I think that's like what really impresses me. Like I feel like I don't know, sometimes like you can go a little too far in saturation and your photo just feels like so overdone. But for some reason, like how are they gonna work? It just feels super balanced, even though the colors are so unnatural sort of feeling. So I commend you on that for reals.
Yeah, no, it's like that perfect level of vibrancy without being overwhelming.
Yeah, agreed. I think we should not to sell anyone else short, but let's try and keep going things here. We've gotten 4 photos in like an hour of streaming. I'm just like, oh shit, we're bad tonight.
We're like, oh, this won't be that long.
We're bad. All right, so with that, let's move on to the next shot. This next one is from David Roth. And Nina, do you want to lead off on this one?
I love this. I love this so much. This is one of my favorite character dynamics from all of comic history. And they captured it perfectly, like with the characters' expressions and the body language here. In terms of the photography editing, guys, I'm a sucker for this matte vintage effect. Like, it is my favorite thing in photography. And this does it so well, especially with such vibrant costumes and Beast Boy's bright green skin. Like, it really helps bring everything down and make it look a little less overwhelmingly cartoonish. So it brings it into reality a bit more convincingly. Mm-hmm. The only nitpick that I have for it would be I want to see more of Beast Boy. Like, I wish he was standing a little bit more to Raven's left, just to see more of his costume, but maybe even like moving his hand so it's less like they're just kind of placed around her waist loosely and like instead fully embrace her a little bit. But other than that, I really love it.
His expression is so good.
It's perfect.
Yeah, no, it's like that is the character.
Yeah. Both of their expressions are just so spot on.
Mm-hmm. And like excellent makeup job. Just I know that has nothing to do with photography, but that body paint looks so stellar.
It's flawless. Like, how?
Come into it with some like pre-dodging and burning done for you with that makeup, so like hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, who needs to dodge and burn now?
Yeah, I would like to see the shot maybe with a little less headroom. I don't think it's particularly a problem, but I'd say maybe just a little bit less headroom, or maybe just zoomed out a little bit as well.
I'll bounce it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I
wish I like Nitpick Town.
Yeah.
I like what Megan A. Meg suggested is like have one of his hands on her shoulder and
nice.
then the other around her waist. And I could see that either way, like have the one behind her around her shoulders and then the other on her waist, or have one coming, like the front one coming across her shoulder and then the other one being around her waist from behind, just to create some more like variety in terms of what he's doing with his arms. And I know we spoke about body paint, and there was one thing I noticed: her hand, isn't painted, and like I completely understand that because I did body paint with my hands multiple times, and painting your hands is awful. But just as the photographer, I would have gone in and like at least desaturated her hand just a little bit, so it would look less human fleshy and more Raven fleshy.
Pale.
Look.
You know.
So it's one way to put it, but I wish there was a bit more separation from the models in the background. I like the background a fair amount. I just wish it was maybe a little bit darker than them. I'm not quite sure, but like luminosity value wise, like both of their faces pop out really well. You know, Raven's legs pop out, but like the rest of their entirety of their torsos feel like they blend, and then especially his hair like really blends into the background. So
I'm burning around his wig just to have it separate a little bit, because it's a really nicely styled wig.
It really is.
Yeah, so that would help it pop a little bit.
I'm gonna get to Nitpick Town.
Hell yeah, the people were waiting.
Bring us home, Sarah.
I know. So I noticed. I mean, this is just like a result of these types of like the bodysuit material, but I wish that they had smoothed out some of like the bumps and stuff, like on her chest whatever.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
was just gonna say, especially in this area.
yeah, it's just like working with this kind of like shooting in any kind of light is gonna catch the tiniest little things on these like bodysuit costumes just because just how it is.
Their skin tight. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like I just have to smooth it out somehow and then clean up some of like the wig hair. And it looks like, and this is just a result also of wearing body paint, because I've only done the body paint thing once, but it was a mess. There are like remnants of the body paint like on her sleeves, and a little bit on her cape as well. So I would have taken some time just to clean that up, just to help like, for lack of a better term, clean up the image. But especially on the black bodysuit, because it's such a big difference between like the little like body paint spots and like the stark black. So
Awesome. Any other thoughts on this, or you guys ready to move on?
I'm really impressed by it. So.
I really don't have a lot to say about this image.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah. Overall, the vibe is awesome.
It really is.
I love how playful that this photo is. That's not something I feel like we don't get a lot of good playful images in cosplay photography.
And I think
we're
it's
all
because
so
a lot
serious.
of cosplayers, and I know I struggle with this too, is like we're afraid to do things with our faces. So
we don't want to look gross.
we just same face.
Yep.
So to see someone like really go like for it and really succeed at doing so is exciting. It's something different that we usually don't always see.
Yeah, we're usually all so serious.
Oops.
Okay, with that, let's move on to the next shot. And this one is from Eric Jaworski. Get that up on my screen. Oh, credit. There we go. Got so much things going on in the background here, guys. It's ridiculous. So I feel like that this shot has a lot of potential, but it's kind of falling flat for me in a lot of ways. I think it just overall, like the tonality of this shot just feels really, really flat. And this if you had like a more dimensional light on them and a more dynamic background, I think this pose would work a lot better. I feel like it feels a little odd, but I think it's just because the lighting feels so flat and the background feels so flat. So I'm hesitant to say that it's the pose, because I'm not sure it is.
No, I really like the pose, and I like seeing people incorporating real life experiences with their costuming. But I think it's the flat background with nothing happening is what's throwing me off. Like you lose a lot of depth when it's just a plain white background.
And it pulls me out of like kind of the time period for The Witcher too, a little bit. Like it makes me feel less like this show was shot in The Witcher and more this was shot in someone's house now.
It's that crown, the crown molding at the
it's
bottom.
the crown molding and the carpeting. Like
the carpet.
And the interesting thing is both of those, like, even if you didn't want to go crazy with a composite, like those things would be easy to composite out.
Yeah.
So, Photography Bonsai in chat said, and something I would agree with, this is probably a prime candidate for a full composite, and I would agree.
Yeah, replacing it with a background more similar to the game.
I think there's a problem with StreamJar. StreamJar just was like, Fawnina's hosting the channel. It's like,
I
that
really
was like,
what is that?
I just did. No.
Oh, you did just do it?
Hold on.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure you were doing that like an hour ago. Way to go, StreamJar. Good job.
Caught up eventually.
I wanted to bring up oh my god, what alien eyes?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the the work done. I mean, I don't think these were. Okay, never mind. Okay, these are definitely. Wait, these are not contacts. These are. I don't think. I can't tell. Regardless, I think the editing on the male model was taken a little bit too far. They just feel like way too bright and overly saturated, especially with like the overall like tones of this photo are a little more muted, but then I see the eyes right away and they're like super saturated compared to everything else. So it just doesn't quite match up for me.
As far as the face angles go, like this is getting into what we were talking about with the Your Lie in April photos, that the dead on face angle can sometimes not translate very well. So I would have liked to see his face tilted just a little bit in either direction.
I
was thinking earlier, like,
I was gonna say I'd almost want them not making camera eye connection.
That's like, what I was gonna say. They should be looking at each other,
yeah.
I think, or something.
Yeah.
Kind of
sharing like a more tender moment.
Yeah, because like right now, and I mean, if this is what you're going for, cool. It does feel more like a traditional maternity photo, not a cosplay, not a cosplay photography shoot that just happens to like, you know, be playing off of that, you know, one character being pregnant, and like it doesn't feel like they're. Yeah, it feels like this is a thing for almost like for an announcement to send out to friends and not to tell a story with the characters.
So this like happens in the game?
I have no idea. Oh. I've played about 10 minutes of The Witcher 2, so I am not.
I haven't played any of it, so.
Yeah, I can't speak at all to it, so. Lightsaberette says nope. So nope. and I mean whatever, like that's fine if you're taking like it's okay to extrapolate past and story, you know, tell a story that doesn't actually happen. That's kind of cool.
Aliens are a big thing in fandom, so
yeah, I think like it's almost like this is a good opportunity to like take like what The Witcher is, like that aesthetic, and then apply it to a maternity setting. Like if this was in the game, like how would they do it, kind of thing.
Right.
I think it was like a little bit opportunity was lost a tiny bit, but yeah.
Okay. I think we had enough on that one, so let's move on. So this next one is from Felix or FX Dandy.
Time to trash it.
Sarah, time to rip this one to shreds, right? That's how we do with Felix.
Yeah, it sucks. Move on.
Okay. And then this next one is from
We're kidding. We like trolling Felix, you guys. We're not that mean. So this is something like I've always been really intrigued by, and that's like using like I can't think of like the correct term, but like when people utilize like harsh streams of light into their photos, like you see it a lot in like fashion photography. I think it's really cool that he like experimented with that kind of lighting and then using it to like enhance his composition. Unfortunately, I think it's a little bit blown out. By a little, I mean a lot. So I think he could have like toned it down a bit with like curves or something just to soften it, because the whites are pretty harsh. But I really like what he was going for, especially with like that cool mirror in the background that kind of looks like a sun. So you kind of have like this like whole like sun ray thing going on. Also, I just realized this is another Fate photo. So as usual, don't know shit. It's fine. And I really like the colors in this too. Like the contrast between like the teal and the red, which is such a great color combo to begin with. But I think here he really made it work.
So this is another photo that I think is a prime example as to why I hate contacts.
Yeah.
I'll zoom in for the folks at home and do a screen share so they can see what I'm talking about with contacts. I just
Yeah, and while you're doing that, the one thing that catches my eye again is the flyaways towards the back of her wig on the
Mhm.
left side. Because like with the harsh lighting, it's kind of highlighting all of the little wig fibers. So, and I don't mind it so much on the right side towards the sword because those look like natural flyaways, but again, it's where they're little loopies that they look unnatural.
I agree. But also that one flyaway that's like sticking out almost at like a 45-degree angle could also go.
it's interesting because I like it's a bit too much, but I do like the how the light is on her face.
Mm-hmm.
It's unusual, but it works. But man, if I
Mhm.
don't dislike it on the sword, like
It's a
I
lot.
yeah, I don't know why so strongly dislike it on the sword versus the face. But there's something about it on the sword. It's just being like this strong, like uh, straight lined cut that just
I mean,
doesn't
it's
feel
making like a
quite.
stripe, like a
Yeah, it
very
just
distinct
doesn't.
shape.
My eyes get drawn to it pretty strong, and I just am not a fan of how it looks with the shot.
I did notice when you zoomed in too that one of her false eyelashes was flipping up on the inner corner of her eye, and like that happens to us all. It's so frustrating.
Rest
Uh,
in
But if
peace.
there was a way to just fix that in post so it didn't disrupt the eye shape from a farther distance.
yeah.
I hate false lashes. They're like
Usually the
so
way I
annoying to
fix
stare
that in Photoshop is by jumping off a bridge. Um,
I just,
I just close the photo and delete it from my hard drive.
you're
That's how I
like,
fix it.
goodbye.
Uh, that is such an annoying thing to fix because it's like such a
at.
small detail, and oftentimes it just is like I just want to like be like, well, I guess I'm never
Die.
editing any of these
Oh
photos,
no,
and
and
then
like I've got in photos back where my false lash is clearly like way up here, but they still went through and edited the whole photo, and I'm like, guys, why didn't you
Um,
tell me?
usually
they're
what
so
I'll
But it
do,
terrible.
happens
even
to
though
us all, and it's frustrating.
it
But
is,
even like a little bit of, I think in this case, if you wanted to save the photo without having to toss it in the trash just over an eyelash, like even a little bit of liquify to bump the eyelash down, because from a distance, like it just looks like her eye shape is coming up way higher on the highlighted eye as opposed to the darkened
yeah.
eye. So just making sure that they look from a distance symmetrical, that
Yeah,
would help.
Liquify could work. I also recommend people if they haven't pull up their clone source panel in Photoshop. You can change the
Hmm.
angle of your clone stamp, so you could clone it like piece by piece and try and change the angle a little bit, and then probably fix it that way. It's gonna be a pain no matter what way you do it, but and in this
It makes a
shot,
big difference,
yeah,
unfortunately.
this shot I don't think is a terrible, like it's not a terrible example of it because like it is such a full body shot that I don't, viewing it full screen doesn't, it's not terrible. And also
Mhm.
Right.
it being this zoomed out, like you don't need to do a stellar job of cleaning it up either. So
No.
Hmm.
it can be a little sloppy.
Did you talk about the contact? I know you mentioned it, but
Yeah,
I didn't know if you
I
went into
mentioned
it.
it.
Yeah.
This is a hard one because it's such blaring bright sunlight into the contact, but like what I was gonna say though is this is why I hate contacts,
Yeah. I was gonna
because
ask what you would have done because I
oops,
wouldn't know what to do. To be
yeah,
honest, I'd be like, ah,
this would
shit.
be a pain in the butt to retouch because the pupil is when you're shooting at an angle like this, and especially when it's bright enough and you can see the pupil no longer lines up with the pupil of the contact, and yeah, it's dumb, it's weird. That's why, like, if it's not a con, I always ask the cosplayer that I'm working with, unless they feel like they really need to wear their contacts, I ask them actually not to wear contacts when we're doing location shoots, because
Understandable.
I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
easier to fix someone's eye color in post than it is to fix stuff like that in post. That's a pain.
That's rough.
Photography Bonsai asks if this is a non-traditional crop, and it is a vertical 16:9. You're right.
Mhm.
I like it. I like that crop a lot. I think it's neat. It feels unusual. I like tall crops. They're pretty cool.
And it worked really well for this photo too, in particular, with that sword.
This would make a nice phone background because, like, there's that blank
For
space
real!
for the time code to go in. That's where my brain went.
Mallow says they buy contacts to enlarge the size. Yes, but all the same, I'd still rather enlarge someone's eyes in post than deal with bad contacts. I think genuinely that most people's eyes look way better than they ever will with contacts. Like it's not that hard, I think, to dodge and burn someone's eyes, even if they have darker colored eyes, to kind of bring out the light in them, and contacts will affect how light plays off of someone's eyes, and I don't think people will end up with as pretty of eyes with contacts in. I just don't.
What Andrew is trying to say is that your real eyes are beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Mellow.
Just the way you are, guys.
Moving on.
See, this is why I don't wear contacts. I'm wearing glasses.
Getting weird.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. Any other thoughts on this one before we move on to the next one?
I am all set.
Okay.
I'm good.
Cool. Then we're gonna go on to this next one. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. This one is from Kelvin. Nina, why don't you lead us off?
I really love, again, you're gonna have to start taking shots how many times I say I like the matte effect, but I do. Especially because this one has it all. It's got the matte effect, it's got the mallow greens.
Yes.
Is it ethereal?
Yes.
It just needs a tilt, Dutch angle.
Doesn't but I love how she's highlighted and then the rest of the grass is dimmed down, so it's almost like this holy ray of light coming down. So yeah, ethereal works. I like the movement with her skirt and the elegant hand that's raised. In terms of the pose, I would probably have her left hand or arm at least a little farther from her body just to create some separation between her torso and her elbow. And maybe like mimic it so it's on the same level, but not doing the same thing as the other hand. And then her wig looks a little vanilla green as opposed to white. And I think it's supposed to be like the same color that her sleeves are. If that makes sense.
They're supposed to be white.
Yeah. Notice. Otherwise, I love this. I love the definition of those little, like, what are those called? The like reedy, fluffy plants that are going across her legs. I completely am blanking on the word for them.
Oh,
like the fluffy grass or whatever.
Yeah, fluffy grass. What are words? We're fine.
I'm not a botanist, okay?
Come on, that's why we brought you
Come on,
on.
man.
I love how that cuts. I love how that cuts across her, and that it's sharpened enough so it still stands out. And I also love how sharp the pattern on her skirt looks. So big fan that, like, even for a faraway shot, we're still getting so many details of the costume.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with all the things you guys said, but I really want to take a trip down to Nitpick Town so that I can sound like a mean person and just like spend most of my time like talking about this photo negatively. So first I want to dig into the pose. I like how her hands are positioned in this shot. However, I think the skirt flip on both sides kind of gives her an odd shape. I wish her left side, our right, was not flipped up, so that way she has more of a like a curve in her overall shape. I think that would look really nice. I wish her right arm was like out and down a little bit more so that we get the negative space between her body and the sleeve.
Yeah.
It would just like all in all those things I think would just give her a lot nicer of a body shape. Especially because like that like a black like velvet kind of just sucks in all the light. And kind of makes it a dark zone, so that way like if her arm is like being intersected by her body there, it just kind of looks like a lot of black in that area, makes it harder to read. The skirt is held up by plants. Oh my god.
Yes.
And then different plants were cloned over to hide that effect. That sounds like more effort than it was work, Kelvin, but you know, props, I guess.
No, I think it's clever. That's awesome. Make nature work for you.
Exactly.
I think her wig is a prime example of where I'd use liquify. Her right side, it feels a bit larger than the left side and kind of feels a little bit odd. I also would say that the strobe on this shot feels the light direction. I wish it was pulled a little bit closer around so it was a bit more even lighting on her face. You're getting mostly the right side of her face lit and not the left side of her face, and I wish it was just a bit more even. If anything, you could have her head pointing in that direction and it would probably more evenly light up her face.
More of like a profile shot for her. Yeah.
And
that'd be cool.
And just to insert this one purely for Kelvin, I really like how much this photo's trucking it.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Goodbye. I'm going away now.
But
I didn't sign up for this.
But I really like this shot. On the backgrounds, the background colors, I really, really like those blues. I kind of wish the greens in the yellowish greens in the foreground were more like the blues, or like that darker green. I feel like they're calling a bit too much attention to themselves at the moment.
Yeah, I could see them being cooled down a little bit, and then that might help with her wig as well.
That's true.
Like all the
Get that
green
yellow
tones that are
tint.
reflecting in it.
Yeah, overall though, I really like the shot.
Me
too.
Okay, I think that wraps up this one. So let's move on to the next photo.
Woo, woo.
Okay, this one is from Kennedy. Let's see. Let me get this up on my screen here quick. Okay. It's funny. I feel like we've had a theme of strong white walls in this critique. And I'm not sure if I'm feeling it in terms of whiteness. That said, this shot it gives this shot a really strong intensity to it. Like it's very bright, very strong, and just kind of has this really strong look to it. Like I mentioned this on a previous photo. There's kind of talking about how, you know, if you're scrolling, I think this is the kind of image that will like it pops so much that you're probably gonna stop when you're over it when you're scrolling. It kind of like calls out to you. Like That said, there's some things that are driving me nuts about this shot. And I'm sure chat has gone off on this one already. Um, it's the how the bow is being held. Like,
Mhm. That's what I was
it,
going to comment on, because with
Yeah.
archery, like you have to draw it back to the corner of your mouth.
yes,
And I've done archery characters, and photographers are always like, lower your hand, you're blocking your face. And I'm like,
But that's
but
not
that's how you draw the
accurate.
bow.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And if they're also, it feels odd because I mean, if they're left-handed, this would make sense, but like it also,
mhm.
I feel like most even left-handed people draw their bow the right-handed way and then just aim with their other eye, but I could be wrong on that.
I'm
Um,
left-handed.
that said,
Mhm.
like there's just so much incorrect. Like the arrow is not knocked on the string. Um, the
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
way, and I'm sure it's probably just because of the case of the bow not really working, but also
Mhm.
like the way that the arrow is being held on the other hand is
Mhm.
not.
Like the way they're holding the bow is a little. It's
Yeah,
not
like there's
quite
like
right.
I don't like, and it shouldn't necessarily be on the photographer to know all the ways that like weapons are like
Right.
properly used, but I think that's a skill you should really just develop because like it
It comes into part of the pre-shoot planning process. Like if you
yeah.
know you're going
Yeah.
to be, as Malo pointed out, if you're going to be shooting a particular weapon or an instrument, like try and research just generally how those are properly held. So if the cosplayer is focused, like the cosplayer may have practiced it, maybe they did know, but in the heat of the shoot, they
Yeah.
didn't
They just
remember
forgot, which
Yeah.
is
having a second
normal.
pair of
To
eyes
be
who's actually
clear,
looking at them.
I think it's
That
on the
can,
cosplayer to know how to do this or not. That said,
100%.
oh
that
yeah, but
said,
saying as a photographer, you can help yourself
yeah.
out too,
Yeah,
just by having a
that said,
general
if you
awareness.
just if you know, you can improve it. The other thing about this shot is like, holy shit, I wonder how many other people in the chat, like, it took them a while to realize there was more than one cosplayer in this photo.
Because
I
it
was
took me
just about to say,
forever.
I thought the knight person behind this one was like a quiver at first.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
You know, like a quiver attached to his
Oh my
shoulder or
god.
something.
I didn't
Yeah.
notice it first of all though. When I first saw this image, I was like, oh my god, it's spooked. I feel
Yeah,
like because
because
I
like
think
I
because
like the
they're helping
concept.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the concept of the pose and like the story it is telling, and I do like the side profile angle for the archer, but
Mhm.
I would like to see the knight assisting them to step like just a little bit more to the left, or at least enough to create some separation between their head and the archer's head.
I think because there's like no background, that's part of the reason why
Yeah.
the knight just kind of gets lost in this photo.
Mhm.
Mhm. This would be a
Forgot
good
about
one for
that.
Mallow
compositing.
just
That's for
realized
sure.
there is a second cosplayer. I think that's point in case though. Like they just blend in so much that it just.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Oh my god.
Just so I pointed out, uh, Stars of Cassiopeia just shared their presentation that they made on properly holding
Thank you,
weapons for cosplay. So I can't validate that it's cool, but I'm pretty sure it probably is. So go check that out.
Cassie made it. It's good. I'm a little
Yeah.
biased, but that's okay.
um,
Yeah, I like the idea of the pose. I love like the dynamic that you get from seeing this sort of photography where it's like the two characters interacting, not interacting with the camera, but like I know nothing about these two, but I can already get a clear understanding of their dynamic.
Mhm.
And that's a huge part of cosplay photography is you want to be able to have your photos tell the story of these characters so that someone passing by who has no idea what you're dressed up as can still gain
Understand.
something from seeing it. And
Yeah.
the concept of the pose definitely achieves it. It's just like I want to be able to tell there's more than one person there at the initial first glance. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what story you're trying to tell. And again, I do think compositing would help with the. I'd be interested to see what sort of setting their game is from or story.
Yeah.
Literally have no idea what it is.
Yeah, same. I don't have any idea either. With that, I think you guys ready to move on to the next shot?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do love the colors in this one. Like you said, they're very vibrant and eye-catching.
Okay.
I was a fan of that.
Well, let's move on to the next shot. And Sarah, you're up on this one. And
More
I'm
fate.
going to take this opportunity to spam the Dutch angle emote.
I know, I was like, Dutch angle! Foghorn noise!
Pew, 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 pew.
Ugh.
And this also is from
Okay.
Chris, so feel free to just tear into them.
It sucks.
Sucks. Next.
Next. Okay, for real.
Also the disclaimer that none of us know shit about Fate, so like there's that as well. So just fair warning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. All I know is that it's from Fate. My assumption now is like if I don't know what something is, I'm like it's probably from Fate anyway. So I think what I think is like super great about this image is, I think the light that he was able to get shooting indoors at Colossal is super impressive because I've shot in there like maybe a couple times and it's either like the models feel really overcast or it's like so yellow because you're surrounded by all that tan stuff. So I think what he did to like white balance that out, or maybe the light was just really, really good. I don't know, but I really like the brightness in this photo. I'm also really digging like all these water effects. I don't know if he had people like kicking water during the shoot.
It's interesting because normally I would say that it's a case of overlays were applied, and
It was definitely not.
I do think there were some overlays used in this photo, like the top left as an overlay,
flare.
and kind of like some of that foreground bokeh is an overlay, but those water specks
real, though,
in the background, I'm pretty sure is real. Which, like, man, they got some really nice coverage on those water droplets because they're everywhere in this shot. It looks really good.
It's really nice because, like, you know, the other downside to shooting indoors at Colossal is that the background's disgusting. So I like that they use
so many people in the background, like little kids.
Yeah, but they use the water as like a good kind of like distraction element, but it also adds like a lot of fun to it, which I really enjoy.
Exactly. And I like the carefully placed bokeh on the left-hand side where it's like you can see that there's people there, but they covered them with the little bokeh droplets.
Exactly.
In terms of the pose, the one thing I'd want her to do is like put her shoulders back just a little bit. Because right now they're definitely rolling forward because of how she has her hands posed in front of her, but just kind of setting them back a little bit would make her look less hunched.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm very bad about in photos. Like photographers are always like, "Why are you cosplaying Quasimodo right now?"
I'm gonna get nitpicky.
Okay, go ahead, Sarah. Because I'm probably the same nitpick. So I was just gonna say so. Go.
No, this nitpick is just a personal thing that bothers me. The liquefy on her eyes to like enlarge them is not natural. Like I don't know why I always notice this in photos, but they look a little like almond shaped.
Yeah,
like,
the shape is a little off on them.
Yeah, like it's like one of my biggest peeves. It's like, I mean, I enlarge people's eyes all the time, but you still have to take into account the biology behind an eyeball. Like, how does it work? Like, if I'm gonna like enlarge an eyeball, what's it gonna do?
Sarah, I need you to make a tutorial that's literally just called the biology of the eyeball.
I'm done. Oh my god.
Anyway.
Sorry.
The anatomy.
Because it's been a recurring theme throughout the stream.
Yes.
There's one little flyaway on the left-hand side.
Nina.
Yeah, that one
like
kind of just is amazing. I kind of love it. It's like it wants to escape.
Yeah, it's like this one little little nubby going out like that.
Yeah.
The wig was like so clean. And
Yeah,
then there's
it's
that
so
one
funny.
moment where
It's just
the-
one that's just a
Flyway. Like the sharpness on it. Perfect.
yeah, totally. I totally agree. I was gonna
Flyway
nitpick on
town.
that one. The other thing that I would do is you got a lot going on in the background with all these sparkly shiny water sprays. So use that kind of abstraction to your advantage and really go ham on clone stamping the background. The like big bluish pole that's coming straight out of the back of her head. The and then the
Umbrella.
umbrella.
I'm sorry, Chris.
And then
Sorry.
the like red lifeguard thing that's right over her shoulder. Like
Like,
all
even if
of
you didn't
those are
pull the
things.
lifeguard out, just desaturate the pants. a
Yeah,
little bit.
honestly, that would be an easy one to change. But honestly, all of those things I think would actually be pretty easy clone stamps or healing brush jobs, because you have all these water droplets, so you're not as worried about making it perfect. Mallow, tell the lifeguard to leave.
Tell the lifeguard to leave.
Get out of my shoot,
Please leave
lifeguard.
your
You're in the
job.
way. Get out of here.
Stop
Oh my
doing
God.
the thing that you're paid to do.
I'm
save
shooting
lives.
here. The one thing that we haven't talked about is the Dutch angle.
Even though it was like the first thing you
Yeah,
said.
I know, right? And
Mhm.
I think that's because in this case, especially if you photoshopped out the white pole, it's such a subtle Dutch angle that it doesn't really feel all that much like a Dutch angle to me. I still get a little bit of the tilty head syndrome, and I don't know if it's really helping the photo at all, but I don't think it's really hurting the photo either. That was Dutch angle time, brought to you by Vontography. Okay. Yeah, no. I really like this shot. I think this is one of Chris, I think this is one of your stronger photos, so that I've seen. So props. So I think with that, you guys ready to move on to the next shot?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Nina, I believe you are next up on this one.
Yes. So I love that I keep getting the ones with the awesome expressions because it's so exciting to see. I love this in terms of the pose and just like I love the expression. I need to move past that, but I love that they're not staring directly at the camera either because it makes it feel more like a scene that we're witnessing instead of a posed like waist up headshot for both of them. The one thing with the greens, I don't like how lime they are. Like they're very intense and vibrant, like key lime in terms of like that shade of green. So I'd like a little bit more mallow green to them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like
Sorry,
I'm almost not qualified to critique this photo without any like understanding of like the characters and what the heck's going on.
Yeah, because I'm a little confused.
Because
actually.
yeah, without, I feel like this is the kind of thing that probably makes way more sense if you know what it's from and you know the characters. That's what I'm getting the feel of, because like right now I'm looking at it and I'm going, I don't know. Mallow, this is child abuse.
Wow, that got dark real fast.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I think it's like brilliantly lit. Like the lighting on them is awesome. The catch light in their eyes. Oh man, we're back at doggo time.
Sorry. Honey, you need to go away. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. This is
Best
a blessing.
friend. Oh my god.
I just love how we
so
could just hear,
cute.
like, all of a sudden I feel like I didn't see him. I just heard panting, and I'm like, why am I hearing panting on the
I
stream
know
right
you
now?
can hear him before you see him.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I'm like, what is going on? Oh no, it's a doggo.
No, he's very warm right now, so he's like a little furnace. Anyways, yeah, I don't know the characters, so I can't be sure of like if the pose is representative of them or accurate or anything. But so I don't understand what he's doing with his hands, but I feel like it is something to do with the series that maybe we're not understanding.
Yeah,
Oh, it's Tintin. Okay,
Navy
it's
Inc. is
Tintin. I
right
see
that they're
it. It is
cosplaying
Tintin.
Tintin, but honestly,
But
like
it still doesn't
that
help me
still
'cause-
doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
like I felt a little uncomfortable when I first saw this image, which I feel kind of bad saying it now, but I just don't understand what's going on.
yeah, it's hard because like from a technical aspect, I actually think this photo is like pretty good. I think the catch lights in their eyes are really, really awesome. Maybe the highlights are just a little bit blown out, and the colors maybe a bit warm. But overall, I really like the way that the light is rendering on this
And the
image
light
is
is great.
really
They're
good.
all look gorgeous.
Okay, someone said it's a mix of Tintin and Rick and Morty. Well, that feels like a very
What? That
deep
makes it
cut.
even what?
That's not the crossover I was expecting.
Yeah, that is like completely over my head as someone who doesn't
Yeah.
know anything about Tintin and doesn't watch Rick and Morty. Like, boom, over the head. So, sorry. That's why I feel like I couldn't do nearly as good of justice on this photo just because lack of understanding.
Yeah,
But in that
unfortunately.
case, like we still, even though we didn't understand like the context, you could still get the character dynamic from it a little bit. Like
Oh yeah.
I still clearly read like I didn't want to say Rick and Morty because I was certain that's not what it was, but it kind of gave me that same feeling. So I don't understand the reference, but I get what the reference is trying to achieve, if that makes sense.
I love
Mhm.
the person on the left's face though. It's just
Yeah.
Expression
great.
is so good. He like went to town.
Mm-hmm. So these are really good examples of like encouraging your models to push their expressions during photo shoots because you can achieve some really amazing results when they actually like let themselves.
So Fluffy Fox shared a link in the chat that shows the pose, and
Oh, I get this.
and
Oh,
I
shit.
can kind of see it, but like I don't read the pose that way at all. Like I'm not gonna lie, I swear to God, it looks like he's putting his like fingers in their mouth.
In the mouth.
That's
Yes,
what I
that's why
read,
I was so
and it
uncomfortable.
looks real
Well,
weird to me.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
like a
wow.
higher angle, so you could see Tintin's chin a little bit more because right now, yeah, it looks like his two middle fingers are like shoved in his mouth.
I think unfortunately this pose just like it just can't be done on humans. Like
I think it could be like to some extent, but like it wouldn't be a fun pose to do.
no.
Like you'd
I just
have
feel
to
like if
get
they
more
raise their
aggressive
hand-
with it. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't do
Right,
it.
instead of just like gently placing the fingers on the face, like you'd have to actually like tug the eyes down.
Yeah, like his
Top
fingers
step,
are
like,
so
attempting it,
far
I was-
away from the eyes that I
From the
didn't I
eyes.
barely read that as trying to like hold their eyes open.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, I mean, it's a really difficult pose that they attempted, so the fact that they did attempt it is really cool.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay, and with that, I think after we poorly critiqued that one, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this next shot is from Robin McDowell, and hold on, wait for it. Okay, there we go.
Stop.
Hey, now I spent time to making that stupid emote. I need to use it.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, so we got more sweet Dutch angles. Sweet, sweet. Um, this one feels so different than the Dutch angle in the previous image, though. So I'll get into that angle in a bit because I don't think it's what I should spend all my time talking about. Overall, I really like the muted colors in the image. I kind of
It's the matte
like
effect.
that like looking down and off kind of gives it a bit of a almost like this nostalgic tone to it. Um, that I really enjoy. Um,
I like how that facial pose allows us to see so much of her eye makeup too.
yeah,
Right.
Did a
yeah.
stellar job with that.
I feel like this is very like unlike Love Live usually. Like usually Love Live is like so cool and like they're doing like idol poses and stuff, but I like how this one is trying to be like more narrative, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do wish we could see more of her hands, I think, because the sleeves completely hide them. So even just grasping the railing or having one like a little outstretched just a bit would
Yeah, I
add
agree.
more
Yeah,
movement
I
to the
think
piece.
not being able to see the hands at all feels a little odd.
Right, like even just the fingertips peeking out would help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, now, since I've held off, I want to get onto that angle.
Hell yeah.
This shot feels like one where the Dutch angle is doing no favors to the photo. Um, it just makes me go like when I'm viewing it, I want to tilt my head. Um, I don't think it's really adding anything to the dynamic. If anything, I think it's kind of like the cosplayer has their head tilted, and that head tilt almost doesn't read quite well anymore because it almost makes
Mhm.
their head feel more correct in the frame, like it's more upright in the
Yeah.
frame, and just makes it feel a little odd. I really believe that this shot would be stronger without the Dutch angle. I don't think it's adding anything for this photo. So that's my 2 cents.
I could see like correcting the Dutch angle and then pulling back just a little bit.
I really like that railing too. So that's kind of like
Yeah,
that's a nice railing.
that's a nice railing. Heard you like railings. That is a nice railing.
Uh,
Oh, you guys.
Andrew has some regrets.
yes.
Anyway. Um,
Trying to think. I something that could be really interesting is maybe playing around with the colors of the background a bit to kind of have them match the kimono a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, especially
That'd be
with
really pretty.
the orange and yellow
Yeah,
plants. And then maybe having the greens mimic the leaves on her kimono. So
yeah.
it's more like mallow greens.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that there could be some really interesting ways to play around with the background colors. So I think that would be worth experimenting with. Something that we've talked about previously, I know Nina, you've brought it up a couple times, is
Mhm.
that even though their face isn't like it's not making contact with the camera, their face is direct onto the camera.
Yes.
And I wish the camera was over a little bit so their angle looked like they were looking more off and down instead of like being direct on the camera.
Mm.
Because when you have this straight on angle, even at this perspective, like you still lose all of their cheekbone definition, so their face becomes just like an oval, and that's something I really struggle with. So I'm always like trying to tilt my head in photos so I don't get completely ovaled out. So even just like angling her chin even further down a little bit or bringing it up would have helped. Or again, moving the camera.
Yeah, I think it doesn't need to be a large camera move to change how that feels. It could be like you could have taken like a step to the side.
Like to the right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just so in love with the color palette in this photo. It's
her kimono really
like
pops.
Sarah was saying, it's love live, but in a different way, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, the different mood really kills it, I think.
Yeah, it does not feel like Love
good.
Live, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, it makes me intrigued. Isn't she supposed to be happy and singing about things? What happened? Who hurt her?
I was like, who hurt you? It's not Love Live. I like it though. It's very non-traditional. So.
Awesome. Any other thoughts before we go on to the next shot? Okay. So, Sarah, why don't you lead us off on this next shot from Scott, or
Dude,
photography.
today is my lucky
cosplay
day.
podcast.
All these freaking links. I'm digging it.
Screw that up. Oh.
So I really like I like it when people capture Link with the Sheikah slate, and I really like how this one, it looks like they're really actually using it. Like that's how their expression reads to me, which I know is like really hard to do, especially when you're telling someone to like look off camera into the distance. It sometimes ends up reading like they're looking into dead space and they're not looking at anything. But I think the way that the light is catching in their eyes has me thoroughly convinced that they're clearly trying to capture something or are looking for something off in the distance. So I think that is like super successful, and it really helps tell the story. I also really like the colors. Again, we're with like this like vibrant saturation vibe, which is really fitting for this game. But I think the greens for me are a little too yellow.
Yeah,
I want to like
too saturated too.
Yeah, they're just very. This is
a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is an instance where I know we mentioned earlier, like oversaturating something or over vibrance or whatever. I think this is an example where it's taken a little bit too far.
Getting almost like these, like the shade of green in like that, like very upper section is just like that where it's like almost yellow, like almost tennis ball yellow. That is like. I think I just have a personal aversion to that color for whatever reason, but I'm just like,
well, I think the other like part where it doesn't work is that it's clashing pretty hard with the yellow of the wig. So like the two yellows are two completely different hues. So I think that is like not helping. You know, how many times have we said this? I wish they were like a little more blue-green. For the grass.
What Cassie just mentioned is also what I was going to bring up, is that I'd like to see their hand not cut off on the left-hand side. So like just even one step back would have helped a lot. Because I want to see the full Sheikah slate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. The crop's a little odd.
Yeah.
For the framing.
The other thing that I think could help a lot with this image is like that tree that's in the background. Just chop that out. Like it just feels like this weird blob in the top of the image, and that's like I think would be like one of the easiest like shop jobs to do, just to like clone stamp and healing brush tool that out. So I think that would be a huge step into making this image feel stronger. Fluffy facts. Yeah, screw that tree. Screw that tree.
I love the detail that was captured on the outfit, just like how crisp it is, especially the braided trim. They're like just it looks so perfect. I love it.
Something that I would maybe spend a little time on is their eyes feel slightly off in the picture. Like the eyes themselves, like the actual like iris and pupil, I think looks really great. Maybe a bit strong on the overall brightness. I think you should darken like the tops of their iris a little bit, but I'm talking more of like the shape and positioning feels like a bit off from the left to the right eye. I would maybe have spent like a little bit of time in liquify to try and balance that out. And that doesn't mean like anything's wrong with like the face overall. It's just probably like the angle you're coming from, like upper with an upper camera angle. I would just have tried to balance that out and liquify a little bit, if that makes sense.
One thing with the wig, it looks like there was a high pass filter used on like the overall photo, and when that hits wigs, sometimes it picks out every little tiny strand of hair, and it's very like when I look at this photo, that's where my eye goes first. All those tiny little fibers. So if there was, I don't know if that's what they did, but if there was a sharpening or high pass filter used on that area, just like go through and erase it.
Fluffy Fox has been playing the cosplay photo critique drinking game. And
Oh
she's on
no.
her second glass of wine.
Rip.
I don't know how to feel about that. Lord. Sorry, I just interrupted to say that. Overall, I really like the vibe of the shot, though. Like, I think to me, like, even though I've said there were things that I would adjust with the eyes, I think the eyes are the real strength of this image. The catch lights are awesome. So bravo on that end. Any other thoughts from you guys on this shot? Cool. Then let's move on to the next one. This one is from Skylar. Nina, why don't you take us away?
This is so sweet and cute, and
Seriously?
I love it. I am a big fan of cosplay photos that do not just center in on the models, but show the location. That was the whole point of the trip that we took this past weekend. I love seeing the characters out in an environment and capturing more of the landscape. So I love that we get to see the ocean and the beach in this shot, and I almost wish we saw more of it. But that being said, I love the colors. They're very soft. I love the shades of blue. The one thing I don't like is the lens flare going right across the cosplayers, just because it draws all of the visual attention to like left center of the photo, and I kind of don't really pay attention to everything that's happening from the center to the right.
I want to rant on that lens flare for a hot second, if that's
so
okay.
If there was going to be a lens flare used, I'd use it to direct attention and balance out the rest of the photo. But I love the pose, and it's giving me a lot of feelings.
Just because I feel like I need to jump into it before we pass, and it feels awkward to come back to. The lens flare makes no sense to me in this shot. Like, I think the biggest thing to me, if you're going to use a lens flare in a photo, make sure that you're using it in a photo that would at least have some like semblance of flare. Like, there's no place in this shot that would be causing any sort of flare, and then like the flare direction is like weirdly horizontal. It makes zero sense to me. So like, I think the shot is so much better if you just delete that lens flare out of it. Like, it's doing you no favors with this photo.
Yeah,
I have more thoughts, but sorry, I just needed to get that out.
Oh no, go right ahead.
Go for it. Or not.
No, I really like the mood of the shot. It's something, Nina, you said earlier, is like you'd like to see more of the beach. I agree. And on that note, I would say this is another case of maybe a horizontal crop instead of a vertical crop would work well for this photo.
I do, like Megan and Meg just pointed out, the lines that are happening in the photo with the angle of the beach versus the horizontal horizon. And even that's echoed with the clouds. Like, that's all very visually satisfying.
It really is.
I think it's really good.
I think back to see even more of it.
Yeah, I think you could. I don't think a vertical or a horizontal would change that, to be honest. I think you could actually play up those lines a bit more if you got a little bit lower in this shot and put them a little bit further down the beach. You could have them be at the converging of the diagonal and the horizontal line in this photo, and I think that visually could be really awesome. they're close to it, and I think it, compositionally feels pretty strong because of that already.
Yeah.
But I think you could just strengthen that a little bit more in the photo.
I mean, I think because this feels so cinematic, I think I would have liked just to see, just for fun, because we haven't mentioned it yet, the 16:9 crop. Just to see what it would look like. I'm not sure if it would work, but I think because it's such a narrative shot already, and it looks like it's literally the ending scene from like The Little Mermaid, I would have liked to see that.
The other thought I have while we're hanging out in nitpick zone, the color of the water, like, it was pretty clearly to me changed in post, which I don't have any problem with. It's just I think the color that it was changed to feels a little bit odd, and like I feel like the transition from the beach to the water just makes it like I just feel like I can immediately tell that it was manipulated, which it's not a bad thing to manipulate the color. Just I don't want to be able to like immediately go like, oh snap.
Right.
Screen share, maybe people can see that a little bit better. I think the biggest way to help out with that is add a bit more depth to the color. What I mean by that is like it kind of feels like a single color layer was like applied over the entirety of the water. Like the shadows, the darker areas have the same hue as as the highlights. So I would take it so where you have the hues of like of the darker tones be like a deeper blue, and then the highlights be more of that aqua color. Like as it is right now, they're pretty much all sitting at a medium blue, and I think that's kind of why my eyes pick it up as being a color change, because there is really like almost no variation into those color tones, and honestly partially because it feels very different from the sky. So
yeah, the photographer said that the water was pretty gray, so
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think
that is hard to fix though.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is like if you have that mask for the water, I would definitely try out just a color balance adjustment layer, and then go into the shadows on that and play around with just the shadows and then just the highlights, and you can add more depth to that color.
Because it feels oddly like flat,
Yeah,
or like opaque, but like water's not
yeah.
necessarily like opaque.
Other ways
if that makes any
to
sense.
do that too is maybe gradient map could work out pretty well too. I'm partial to
Fox just mentioned doing a gradient.
Yeah, I'm partial to the color balance adjustment layer, but I think a gradient map could handle it pretty well as well. Megane Meg also mentioned the color of the sand, that it could probably be a little bit lighter. I would also agree with that. I think it could be like a little bit brighter and maybe a little more like on the yellow side. It's pretty like red, like in terms of like brown. It's reading on the yellow or the red side of brown, and I'd maybe like try and push it a little bit more yellow, and then maybe just up the brightness of the sand a little bit. But that's pretty damn nitpicky.
Yeah.
That, and I think you could this might, kind of something that's been shown a lot in this critique with other images is that kind of like matte color toning. I think this shot could look really cool with that kind of matte color tone as well.
Yeah, I agree.
The singular Bork. Any other thoughts, or we're ready to move on to the final shot of the critique?
Let's get to it.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. And then this final shot is from a man who I feel like usually finds himself being at the end of every critique because we do these alphabetical, and having a name start with a U means you end up getting to the end. As someone whose
Sorry,
last name
oops,
starts with a V, I can relate to this. So so sorry about that. It's just easier to do it alphabetically. So yeah.
It was a beautiful image to end the night on, though.
Yeah.
Really is.
The colors are just rocking in this shot.
Great.
Um, I'm feeling the colors more on the cosplayer than I am in the background. I'd like to play around with the background colors a little bit more, but like, man, the colors on the cosplayer themselves, the strong oranges,
bright, vibrant pink
yeah,
lips.
and for me, what just so totally seals the deal for me is on the right edge of her in the frame. The shadows have that really really nice blue tinge, and it just gives that like, I'm a sucker for orange highlight blue shadow color toning, and this just like, it's so good.
Knocks it out.
Yeah. With that said, I would like to see those greens taken blue and really play on that blue orange color toning across the image, and then I would be like, holy cow, this is dope.
I'm gonna get nitpicky.
Good, because I was also gonna get nitpicky. Go for it.
So I think because this shot is like, it's basically a portrait, so a lot of the emphasis on like the face, like that's the focal point. I would have spent some time cleaning up the skin. Like there's just like little paint remnants, I think, and some of like her eye makeup started like wearing off, which is just like, it just happens with makeup, so like that's normal. But just going in to help clean it up and even it out a bit, especially because you're so close. Like I kind of saw that like right away, unfortunately, because everything else in the image is so clean. Like her headdress is like beautiful and everything's so crisp, but then I see some kind of like the makeup smudging. So just to even that out in post would have been good.
Yeah, like right along her brow too. There's like a little bit of eyeliner or mascara residue, just like a couple black spots. So I'd get rid of those as well.
The other thing that I would really put some effort in doing is clean up the line on her nose, that like white makeup line. I think if you made that sharper, there's just some spots where like either it got like adjusted or, you know, rubbed off a little bit. If you just cleaned up that line and made it like a really sharp line, I think that would look really neat.
I think it's a case also, like, even if it was applied like that, I feel like it's okay for the photographer to go in and clean it up. Because I know I've done that before.
Absolutely. I do that all the time on like, I think the most common one for me is like, I've shot several sans from Princess Mononoke, and if they're like not going for the smudgy look, like I think like everyone just appreciates it when you clean up their like, you know, color makeup. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be bothered by you spending the time to make their makeup look better unless like it's intentionally like smudgy.
Right.
If you have any misgivings on it, just ask. I'm sure most cosplayers would not be bothered at all answering that question, but I would be surprised if pretty much any cosplayer, when you told them that you were cleaning up their
like,
their makeup, they'd be like,
the smudged makeup.
Yeah, they're like, no,
exactly. I like the smudged look. Thank you.
Please let everyone tell that I'm sweating my makeup off. It's fine. Like, no, if it takes just a couple, no matter how much you bend I seal that body paint, it'll still come off at some point. But no, even if it's just something as simple as like using the clone tool to go through and even out the line, like it makes such a huge difference, and then it doesn't distract from all the other beautiful editing that's been done and the color grading as well.
Framing wise, I would maybe pull this out just a little bit. And I would have them be situated a little bit more to the right of the frame. So kind of don't have as much negative space with the background on the right of the frame. The main reason for that is like if she was looking towards the camera, I would probably want to have this like more center framed. And since she's looking off to the left, I'd want her, you know, pushed a little bit more so that we've got the negative space where she's looking. But other than that, it's a really nice image.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah,
I always talk about what a stark contrast it is from last week's like coming out of the depths of hell.
Oh yeah, no. Ustav's image last week was like this like crazy like strobe lit like demon
like
thing,
dragon and flames. It was crazy.
It was very, very different from this shot, and it was pretty neat. But yeah, this is like the polar opposite of that shot. Yeah, out of curiosity, I'm not gonna share it because I've some people are not cool with that, but I played around with changing those greens in the background real quick into like a blue, and I am loving it. So I would maybe consider giving that a try, Ustav.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Then it would also help bring in the blues from like the Pokeballs on her head too.
Yeah.
I think that'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts on this for the last image of the night?
That's all from me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, then that's a wrap for critiques tonight. Thank you everyone who submitted. It's, you know, this is you're allowing us to do this, and that's a really awesome thing, and I appreciate everyone who submits, and I hope you all find this helpful. If you find it helpful, I always appreciate hearing feedback from you guys. I'm always trying to make this better. Sometimes I don't have as much time to put into it as I would like, because this is way more effort than it should be. So it already takes a lot of my time, but I'm always looking to improve it. There's some ideas that I have to potentially make this stream even better. So hopefully we'll get some small tweaks in the future. But if you guys have any ideas for me, I am more than happy to listen. Mallows comment.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much for having me on as a guest.
Fawnina,
even as a guest, I got to learn some stuff just from being.
It was awesome having you on. We loved having you here. Your insight was awesome. I once again continue to think you sold yourself a little short at the beginning. I think you did an excellent job.
Thank you. I'm glad I could contribute some stuff.
Yes, of course. So Nina, why don't you let us know where people can find your work?
Don't find me. Leave me alone.
Wow.
I'm Fawnina on pretty much everything.
Yeah, so
if you are interested in seeing some costume stuff, that's where it'll be.
Yeah. Nina, you're streaming with some degree of frequency as well, so I'd recommend if you're on Twitch, give Fawnina a follow. Her streams are fun.
Already.
Yeah, you should have been already, but if you're not, go and give her a follow. I'm gonna ask this at every a stream from now on. By the way, Sarah. So Sarah, where can people find your work?
On Instagram and Twitter, but mostly Instagram. I've given up on Facebook.
I'm still trekking along on Facebook, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit. But I am Vontography on here. Obviously, if you didn't know that would be really weird. And Vontography on Facebook, but Vontography was taken on Instagram when I created it, so I'm Vontog on Instagram. So yeah. Awkward. Let's see. Is there
You
any
wanted
other thing?
suggestions for other guests.
Oh yeah. Great. Thank you, Nina. You're doing
try.
wonderful. Yeah, if you guys have suggestions for us for future guests, we are more than happy to hear those. That doesn't mean that we can get them, because there's some reasons why. Like we reached out to one guest that said, I would love to, but I do not own a mic nor a webcam. And we're like, yeah, that makes it a little difficult. And he's like,
Yeah.
maybe try again like later. So it doesn't mean we can potentially get everyone. But if you have someone that you're interested in seeing, let us know. I just posted the link for that in the chat. Yeah, once again, feel free to reach out with me with suggestions. And with that, I think it's time to announce the next critique. So one of the people that's been chatting all night in chat, Miss Mallow, will be on as our next guest and our first time reoccurring guest. She was actually our very first guest on episode 3 of Cosplay Photo Critique. So it is our first time having someone back, which is exciting. Even maybe
bring the wine, it's gonna be lit.
Yeah, the maybe even more exciting part of this is that she will or we will be doing this pretty soon. The next critique will be on Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday. Don't get confused that it's not on a Thursday. Tuesday, August 7th. The reason being for Tuesday is if we didn't do it on that Tuesday, you wouldn't be seeing us for quite some time, because just lots of things in our lives would be preventing us from doing it on pretty much any Thursdays for more than a month out. So so thus this is probably the one time we're gonna do on Tuesday, but I would like to keep Thursdays as our regular time for doing these. But that said, this one's going to be on a Tuesday, and it's coming up pretty soon. So if you want to submit a photo, putting in the calendar, awesome. Mallow's work's awesome. Her insight's great. Obviously, if you were following along in chat, you already knew that. If you want to submit a photo, it's submissions.vontography.com. I would get those in soon, because we have a fair amount of rollover from the previous or submissions that did not make the time, or they were either submitted late or just for whatever reason didn't, they're pretty much miss the deadline. And we're doing 15 photos per critique. So at this moment, I am taking the first 15 photos that I get. So we already have 4 submitted that were rolled over submissions from this one. So that means we're only starting with 11 spots. So if you want to get your photo in, get it in sooner than later. Trying to think of anything else. Oh yeah. Once again, just want to give one more shout out for donations. Once again, don't know what I'm going to do with those donations at the moment, but I plan on any donations that I receive will go towards stream/photography related items in some way. I want to make it tangible, maybe in the most minor ways, but every donation you put in, I want to make it tangible towards this. So if you feel like you learned something and you want to donate, by all means do. Don't feel obligated at all, though. It is just giving us a little tip for this, if you feel like it. And with that, I think that's a wrap. Thank you again, everyone, for tuned in for the stream. Thank you also if you're watching this in post, where these get uploaded on YouTube. And hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thanks again. And have an awesome evening. Bye.
Bye.